I'm Karen Rechtin. Like Ryan said, a lot of you may know me. And if I've been training with you before, then some of this will probably be a rerun, but always good to review. I hope that all of you will get something out of this. I'll apologize in advance for potential internet blips. As we all are, we're working from home, and I live in a complex where we all share internet, so it's hard to say what's going to happen here. Hopefully we'll make it through the next 45 minutes or so. I think this is going to last probably half an hour to 45 minutes, somewhere in that neighborhood. What I'm going to do is talk about, for counterpoint reporting, talk about how we can filter information for our reports, how we can create quick reports, how we can save our parameters and recall them for other times, change printers, look at some different reports in different modules. Also, Counterpoint has, in their reports manual, defined some reports as key reports, and so I want to talk about those. Also, I get asked a lot about month-end and period-end reports, and so I'm going to go over my recommended list for those, and also for audit reporting, and then talk about an email utility that we have at RCS at the end. And I said, I'm Karen Rechtin. I have been a Counterpoint consultant for 20 years. Prior to that, I ran a business that had 5 stores that used Counterpoint. So I feel like I've used Counterpoint a good part of my career anyway. So my background comes not only from using Counterpoint as a consultant, but also I've been a retailer. So I've been a store manager, I've been a buyer, I've been a district manager, I've been an inventory control manager, and so I can sort of see things from your side as well as from the consulting side. So I hope that this will be helpful. So all that, we'll get started, and I'm going to share my screen so we can actually look at Counterpoint and see how this works. Okay, all of the reports in Counterpoint are written using Crystal reports. So for those of you that have any interest in doing modification of the actual reports, like adding different fields to the reports and maybe changing some formatting and things like that, if you have the desire and the resources, you can purchase the Crystal report writer and actually make like true modifications to the reports. We're not going to talk about that today, but I just wanted to mention that they're all in Crystal and you have that capability. We're going to talk about what we can do within Counterpoint today. So one of the reports that I like to use for my demonstration, because it includes lots of options, is a sales history report, and it's called Sales Analysis by Group. And I like this report because we can get probably 100 or more reports from it. And it gives me the opportunity to show lots of the different things I want to talk about here. So one thing we're going to talk about is everywhere in Counterpoint, whether you're doing a lookup or whether you're doing a report or, you know, all of our different things that we do, we've got the ability to change our filters. And so we want to change our filters in reports so that we can modify the information that we're seeing in our reports. So anywhere you see a screen like this, this gives us the opportunity to change our filters. And in order to change the information that we're filtering on, we can right-click in the background. Actually, I'm going to go to the line. We can right-click in the background and select Customize. And from here, it's going to give you the ability to add or subtract filters from your screen. So we can check or uncheck to use any of the filters that are already selected here. Also, you can click here where it says, you may not be able to see it, but it says click here to add condition. And then you can click the red word or the field that pops up, and that will give you a list of all the different fields that you can select from in this particular table to do your filtering on. And in a lot of our reports, the reports are pulling together information from different tables in Counterpoint. So here, for example, in the sales analysis by group, for the particular report I've selected, it's pulling from the table of ticket history and ticket history line and customer. So because of that, if I go to the different tabs and I right-click to filter, change my filters, it's going to give us different lists of fields that we can select from. So in this case, I've got our ticket history header, our ticket history line, and our customer that we can do different filtering on. So again, if I right-click in the background, select customize, click the red word, pick another field that we want to filter on, and then I can right-click. For some reason, my right-click isn't working very well, and simplify, and then you can see that field has been added to your list of filters. One sort of side note, just because it came to mind as I'm looking at this screen, this screen has lots of filters on here, and a lot of new Counterpoint users especially, I see the tendency they want to try to fill out as many of these fields as they can, whether or not it's necessary. So I'll just say that in all Counterpoint filtering, whether you're reporting or doing lookups or anything, it's better to fill out the fewest number of fields that you need to get your information. So for example, if you have a station number or a register number that is unique to a particular store, all you have to do is put in the station number here. You don't need to also put in the store number. If you put the station number and it's unique, that should be enough to get your information. So the ability to change your filters in your reporting gives you the capability to really focus on the data that you want to report on and really narrow down your data. Okay, so also when we're in our from view here, our customized view, we've got the ability with our conditions to make our conditions to be and or. So if I look at how this one is written, it says the item number is between whatever and an item category is exactly whatever and. So when you have these ands here and you're filling out all of these criteria, then your item needs to meet all of the criteria in order to be returned in the data. If we change this to or, we've got our item number is between whatever, or item category is something else. So a lot of times when you do your ors, you're making your data set that you're returning bigger than when you have it, your condition as and. Also here, we've got the ability to change our condition. So here where it says item number is between, if we click the word between, then you've got the ability to change your condition here. So if we want to make item number, let's say, is exactly, and I simplify this, whereas this item number field used to have two fields here that you had to put in a to and a from item number. Now we just have an item number is exactly. So again, that just gives you the ability to narrow down. And again, this is in our lookups in Counterpoint as well as when we're setting our criteria for our reporting. So as you go through and you create all of these filters and conditions and you've narrowed down your report to be exactly what you want. And a lot of times when you do this, if you've done this before, you know, you can spend a lot of time creating a report. And so when you get it exactly how you want to be able to retrieve this and use it another time. So when you get everything set, down here in the options, you can go to options and save parameters. When you save the parameters, you can give it a report name. And then you've got the ability to make it public or private. If it's public, everybody in your organization will be able to see it when they come back and select from the different parameters that they can load. It's public, everybody can see it. If you uncheck public, it becomes private. And so then it's only available to the person that set up the report or the user that was logged into Counterpoint. You also can select a specific printer that you want to go to if you want to direct it to a particular printer. So when I save those parameters, and then I close that up, the next time I come back to the sales analysis by group, instead of having to add everything again, I can go to options and load parameters, and then I can find parameters that I just set up, load those parameters, and then all of the different changes that I've made to this report will already be there, and I won't have to do that again. So that's a really, really helpful option, and then allows you to give access to all those custom reports to people in your organization as well. Just a few general topics about Counterpoint reports here. A lot of our reports at the top have the option to be a traditional report, which is a regular portrait-oriented 5-column report. So that would be our traditional. I've got the option to have a landscape 7-column, 10-column, or 11-column. Now these are not available on all reports, but a lot of reports you'll see this. So if I select a landscape 7-column, and then I've got the ability to come here to select the columns that I want to see on the report. You've got the ability on the left to look at all of your available columns that you can have on your report. And then over on the right, the actual columns that you're going to see on your report. So I can add a couple more fields. When I get more fields than the report will hold, I'll get a red warning down here at the bottom that says I've selected too many fields. And to move fields back and forth, you can either double click on the field or you can select the arrows to move them back and forth. And also you've got the ability to reorder the columns and how they're showing up. So you can select a field and you can move it up or move it down. So you can reorder how they show. Over here on the right, you've got check boxes for dollar rounding and quantity rounding. So if you have dollar rounding checked, you're not going to see any cents. If you have quantity rounding checked, you're not going to see any places after the decimal if you sell partial quantities. Also, some reports you have showing the percent of total. Kind of a confusing checkbox there. So this, let's say we're looking at a category report and you've got 10 categories and it's showing sales lumped by category. In that case, it would show you what percentage of the grand total each of those categories was of the sales of the grand total. So, you know, category accessory is 10%, category clothing is 20%, some other categories 22%. Shows you the percentage of total, not just the dollar amount of the sales. So if you want to see that percentage, you leave that checked. Then when you've got your report created, we can preview our report. If we've done this before, we all know about previewing. Here we can see results of our report. From our preview, we've got the ability to do different things to it. We can print from here. And if we print the report, it will, if you just click the printer icon, it's going to print to the default printer for the machine that you're logged into. If you want to change the printer that it goes to, you can click File and then Printer Setup, and you can select a different printer from your list of available printers. And this would be based on your Windows printers that you have access to. If you don't change that, it's always going to go to your default printer. So a lot of times people will display a report and it will show it in a, maybe like a receipt size, or it will say, you'll get some kind of a warning message that it's too big, the report's too big to display. And that's because the default printer on the machine that you're logged into is maybe a receipt printer or a barcode printer. So like I said, we can print to paper, or we have the envelope with the red arrow here, and that gives us the ability to export this report to a lot of different formats. So from the export, you can do a drop down here, and all kinds of formats that we can export to. You can do a PDF, you can do Excel data only. Just a little asterisk there that even though it says data only, a lot of times you still get some kinds of column headings and different information there. You can send it to Word, all different CSV, all different formats. So when you do that export, you've got the ability to just export certain pages if you want. And then it's going to ask you where you want to save your report. So then you've got the ability to save it and work with it, or email if that's desired. And also, you can email reports directly from Counterpoint. And this does take a little extra setup in your system if you don't already have this, but it is standard in Counterpoint. So if that's the case, you can email the report, and it will give you this window here, and it will ask you who it's from, and it will default to you being the user that's logged in, and then your email address that's set up in your user record, and then who we're sending it to. So if we're sending it to a user, a customer, a vendor, so in all of those three choices, it's going to use the email address that is in that particular record. So if it's Counterpoint user, we need to have their email address in there. If it's to a customer, it needs to have their email address in there, vendor, etc. Or we can do custom, and then it lets you enter in who you're going to send it to. I'm not really going to send it, so I won't fix that. But anyway, you can change the subject then, and you can change the body. The subject line and the body text are set up in your, I believe, company setup as the defaults, but you can change those. So then when you say okay, it will at that point generate the report and email it in the report format that we see when we display it. Now, emailing outside of the Counterpoint system, emailing to an address that is not one of these users, customers, or vendors, that is controlled by a security setting, because there may be a lot of data and information that you don't want people emailing out of your system. And so it's a system security code setting as to whether you can do that or not. Any questions about any of that before I go on? Nope. Okay.
Sorry, Karen. Yes,
Yeah.
we have one. So it says the email client is built within Counterpoint. That's a question.
No, it is not. It uses, I believe it uses STMP, your STMP server. And we can take your information and get you the exact setup information of it. I'm not that familiar with it, but I know there's a setup in Management Console that you do there. And it
Okay.
looks at your SMTP server, and you have to have your server login information, that kind of thing.
So you don't
So
need
it
an
uses your normal
outside.
email, your normal email.
Okay.
So if you want to take down who that is, we can get that information to them.
Sure thing.
Okay.
That's all I'm showing right now.
Okay, good. One other kind of neat feature about reporting, if you're a kind of a report geek and a data geek, I'll say, I just want to point this out. If you were to use Crystal Reports and need to know field names, or if you just like this kind of information, whenever you're in a maintenance screen, so that would be like setting up an item, setting up a customer, that kind of information, we are seeing here what are the English names of all of these fields. So if you do one right click up in the title bar at the top of your maintenance screen, and then you select this here that says labels as field names, control names. That changes this into the code name of what the table name is, and also what the code field name is of all of the fields for this table. So if you're, for example, in Crystal Reports and you're making modifications, and sometimes you need to know that information, or if you're using data interchange, it may be helpful to know that information. So it's maybe something that you'll never ever use, but nice to know anyway. Okay.
Karen, it looks like we have another question.
Okay.
Stacy would like information on loading her email for reports. Does
Load.
that make sense?
No. Oh, you mean like where you put your email addresses so that they default in there?
Possibly.
We'll try with that. Okay, so the three options that were set up in there for default were users, customers, and vendors. So for users, those would be internal Counterpoint users. So that would be under their user record, set up system users. And on the contact tab, here it would be their email one. So in every case, it's in that setup record. So that would be the user. For customers, it would be under customers. And if you email receipts, just as a side note here, if you email receipts to customers, then their email address, the email address that's used by default is whatever's in the email one of the customer record. So that's where you would put it if you were emailing it to a customer. And if you were going to email to a vendor, that would be under purchasing vendors. And under the contact tab and the email for the contact one. I hope that answered the question for you. If not, put it back in the chat and we'll come back to it.
I also have a new question from Ben. Can you schedule a report to be emailed periodically, like daily?
Yes, you can. And I was going to leave that to the end, but since the questions come up, that's okay. Since the questions come up, I'll talk about it. Counterpoint does not have that built-in capability, but RCS has written a utility that we can install on your system. And you can, the way it works is that you save your report parameters and then you schedule that particular saved report parameter to run at whatever time you want and to email to whatever users you want. Or not users, but email to any email addresses that you want. It also has the capability to generate purchase requests from purchase advice and transfers from transfer advice. So that's very helpful. If you have purchase advice that takes a long time to run, you can just have that run at night and either just email that report to your buyers, or you can actually have it generate the purchase request, and then the buyer just has to modify the purchase request when they come to work the next day. You can schedule any number of reports. They can run all night long, all day long. It's a really, really helpful, very helpful utility and very time saving. So if you have management staff that first thing in the morning, they want to see a flash sales, and they want to see a category report, and they want to see an inventory valuation, and whatever all those things are that they want, you can just get those all as saved parameters and then schedule them up to be sent on whatever schedule you want. So that was my last thing, but that ended up being a good thing. It's a great utility. Customers that have it, as soon as they get it, they're so thankful that they get it. Very time saving. Okay. So that was sort of the overview of how to use the reports in Counterpoint. Like I said, in the Counterpoint Reports Manual, which we will furnish to all of you at the end of the session here, in the Reports Manual, NCR has designated some reports that they call key reports. And these are reports that most customers do use and get benefit from. So the first ones we'll look at our sales history, and under sales history reports, and then probably one that we all run is flash sales. So flash sales gives us the ability to look at multiple stores at a time. This is one of the few reports that you actually can see sales for all locations broken out on one report. So we can look at flash sales. This is one that we can make traditional or landscape, so we can get up to 11 columns on this report. We've got the ability to change the columns that we're seeing on the report, of course. And then we've got our different tables that it's pulling from. So here, if we want to just see, for example, sales for one particular category for all of our stores, we can filter it down by item filters. We can filter it down to just particular registers if we want, or a particular date range. And on this report, you've got the ability to do comparative date ranges. So here, if we want to do this year to last year, this week to last week, however, whatever you want to look at here for your comparisons. There are a few reports in the system that have 3 periods worth of comparisons. This one has 2. If we want to look at our date choices here, our date choices, we've got, you'll see in a lot of cases we have, for example, last year and last year company. So last year, if we pick that, it's just going to pick the last calendar year date. Now, if we have a fiscal year defined in Counterpoint and our date ranges are different than a calendar year, and we choose last year company, this particular company does not have different dates, but it will use your beginning and ending date of your company year that we have defined in Counterpoint. The same thing here for our quarter. We can do it by quarters, by seasons, and those are all defined when you set up your calendars, and that would be under setup system calendars, I believe. Once you set a calendar cannot be changed, by the way, either. So whatever's in your system, it is how it is until you change it going forward. So you can do week comparisons, last 7 days. You can just look at yesterday, any number of date choices here, or of course you can just enter in your own date ranges. We'll note about some date entry shortcuts here. Anytime you're in a date field and you enter the letter T, it will put in today's date. If you want to run a month report, the word month starts with an M and ends with an H. So if you put an M in this field in the beginning field and an H in the ending field. We'll put in the beginning and ending dates of the current month. Same for the word year. If we want to look at our year, you can put in Y and you can put in R, and it will put the beginning and ending dates of the year. So just a couple little tips there. Also, this particular report and many reports, you've got the ability to change the order that you see the resulting report in. So you can order it by store number, by description. If we're looking at number of lines, that would be number of ticket lines or lines within every sales transaction. However you want to order the report, you've got options here. Also, you can see a pie chart. If we show a pie chart, it will show us the breakdown of our sales by store in this case on the pie chart. And you can define this down to one store or all stores. So we'll say all stores, and because I'm in a demo database, I'm just going to put a wide date range here. And I'm not going to have a second. So in a flash sales, I only have 2 stores in this particular database. So I've got my pie chart and then I've got my breakdown down below of all of the information that we're seeing there. Ordered in however we decided in our parameters. Flash sales, like I said, that's one that pretty much everybody uses because it's quick, it's easy, gives you the high level, usually of all store sales for whatever period of time. That's one in the report emailer that's very often emailed. And there's sales analysis by group. And even though we already looked at that for the learning how to do some of the reporting features, sales analysis by group is one of the most powerful reports in the system because it gives you the option to literally probably get over 100 reports out of this one selection here. So what defines what we're looking at here is our group by window. So sales, also the sales history reports are all looking at sales for posted sales. That's not going to look at any of today's sales. So here from our sales history, we've got group by. And so like I mentioned earlier, a lot of these reports are pulling from different tables of information. So we can pull information from the customer table. So that would be group by customer. Group by item, that's pulling information from the item table. Ticket history line, that's looking actually at the sales transactions and looking at every line by line. And then we've got our ticket history header. So the header gives things like what store it was, who was the customer, date range. There's some nice choices here too, like day of week sales. So you can look at your sales broken down by every day of week, and then you can order it, the report, to show you sales in order of highest to lowest days of week. There's also one by month by day. So by month by day lets you look at sales for every day of the month with all of the columns that you've selected in your report. And then also you can run this report to get user information. You can look at sales by sales rep or sales by user. So I think the majority of time when this report's used, people are using either ticket history line choices or the ticket history choices. So let's say, for example, here we want to look at ticket history line item number. So we want to look here at what items that we actually sold. And I want to see the top 25 items. And I want to order results of the report, not by item number, but I want to see in order of sales. just a note here on all of these sales choices. If you want to see sales minus returns, you want to just pick the sales option there. And then again, our date range. Now in this particular report, if I do all stores, it's going to lump all stores together. And so I've already got my columns and everything selected. If I preview this report, it will show me the top 25 items that we sold in the company lumped together with all of our column choices there. So because of all of the different group by options, that's why I said that gives us the ability to get, you know, dozens or hundreds of report choices out of those. Oftentimes we do discount reporting out of here because there are so many different types of discounting in Counterpoint that you have a lot of times have to pull reports from different areas of the system. But for a different promotional pricing and price override reasons, things like that, we do reporting from here. And then here you've also got checkboxes to show a pie chart or to include groups with no history. So, you know, if you want to see, for example, a category report, a category that had 0 sales, if you would want to see that in your report, even though it had 0 sales, then you would say include groups with no history. So that's the sales analysis by group. Great report. This same report is available for today's tickets. Like I said, this is the unposted, or this is the posted sales report because it's in sales history. You can get the same information for current day's transactions in point of sale reports and unposted sales analysis report. So you've got all your same choices here. You can see all that same information for today's sales. So another great sales report is under sales history reports, and it is sales history by customer by item. So that's used a lot of times to pull up a particular customer, see all of the things that they have bought and look at all their history. Conversely, you've got sales history by item by customer. So if you have an item that you want to see who all has bought it, let's say, for example, we have a recall, or we have extra information about the product, or we want to contact them and let them know we've got a new shipment from that particular vendor of a similar item, that kind of thing. Sales history by item by customer. The management history report, you can get a lot of the information in the management history report that you can in the sales history by group, but it's a little more consolidated. So these are sort of high-level reports that management generally wants to see. So they're quick and easy to run. You've got item category history. So this will show you your sales by category. Sales by pay code. So all of your different payment types and how your sales break out there. Sales rep history. So that was who's the salesperson on the transaction, not necessarily the user logged in, but the sales rep. Your store and station, so sales by register, sales by store, your tax code breakout, and your user. So like I said, who's logged in when a sale is made versus the sales rep. And here you can't pick columns or anything. They're canned reports, but they're quick and easy to run. Put in your date range. You can have one comparative period if you want, and then summary or detail here. And then also, if you're a commission organization or you track your sales by sales rep, There's also the sales rep productivity report that a lot of companies use. Of course, all of these are hugely helpful for different reasons, but those are sort of the key reports. And in inventory, so if we go to inventory reports, our key reports here are our valuation reports. So we have two valuation reports. One would be our historical valuation. So this gives us the ability to put in a date and look at what the value of our inventory is at some prior date. In this case, we can also narrow it down to see, we just want to see the valuation by a particular item or a particular category, or, you know, different subcategory, different ways to filter that down, but it gives you the ability to look back in time and see what your value was at an earlier time. Also with the options to show pie chart, breakout location detail. So here you can say, I want to look at what the category totals were in a particular category last month, break it out by location. And then you've got the rounding capabilities here too. So that historical valuation is used a lot. And then we also have the regular valuation report. And the valuation report shows us what our inventory is worth right now. So this is a point in time report. We very often call this, it's the accounting record. So if you want the exact value at month end of what your inventory is worth, you would run this on the first of the month before you have sales or any postings that happen to see what your value is at month end. Inventory history report. When I used to manage an inventory, the company I worked for, inventory history report was one of my favorites. Inventory history report lets you look at everything that's ever happened to a particular item. So you can say, I want to see it in transaction type, order, and then date, or transaction date, order, and then type. I always like to look at it in date order because it lets you see what happened with the item in the order that every transaction happened. Summary or detail, again, if you're digging into a discrepancy in a quantity, then you might want to look at the detail of all of this. You can narrow it down to a particular item and location. And because there's not much data here, I'm just going to show everything. And then you can also narrow it down to what kind of transactions you want to look at. Maybe you only want to look at receiving transactions, or maybe you only want to look at inventory adjustments and all the historical information, what all inventory adjustments have been done to this item. You can change the filter and just say you want to see transaction type is adjustments. And so when we look at this report, it shows us, because I picked all items, it's going to show us everything. But here, for example, this item, it shows that, first of all, we adjusted in 4, and then we received 15, and then we sold 0. Don't know why that's there. But anyway, our ending quantity is 19. And so here, if you've got a cost discrepancy, if all of a sudden your average cost of your item goes crazy and it's very large or very small and it's obviously wrong, you can come back here and you can see the cost that was associated with every transaction, and you can figure out costing problems. You can figure out quantity problems. And so this is a good research type report. We've also got inventory analysis. So the inventory analysis gives us the ability to look at current quantity on hand. Oops. So here, just kind of a quick snapshot of your quantity on hand, committed, on purchase order, and then some valuation here and what your projected profit is of your on hand. So that's your inventory analysis. You've also got merchandise analysis. Merchandise analysis is a very heavily used report. This report pulls together sales information and inventory information. It's one of the few reports in the system that does that. And so this is very often a report used by buyers, because they can look in here and they can see all kinds of information on your report. So you can look at past performance. You can look at the current state of your inventory. You can rank. So this is a hugely powerful report here, and it's worth spending. I don't have time to really go into it now, but this is worth spending some time on your own to look at this, and I'd be happy to work with anybody on this. But like I said, for buyers, this is usually a report that is used by the buyers. And then we have 6-week item history and 12-month item history as well. So let's see here. If I could just find them. Here's our 6-week item history. And so our 6-week and our 12-month just takes a look backwards. And I won't have any information here, but this takes a look backwards and lets us know our sales for each week that's happened, what we started out with, what we received, what we've sold, kind of like a running total of what happened to that item. Same thing with a 12-month. So those are what in the manual are noted as the key reports, and I would agree, those are the ones that people use most often. Just to talk a little bit, I said I get a lot of, in my training and my visits places, I get a lot of question on what reports are used at period end and month end. So end of month when you're closing out and you want to balance up to your accounting system, or end of year and you want to see your, have reporting of your end of year. Note that the majority of this information, you can always go backwards. Maybe not the majority, but a lot of this information you can always go backwards and get. Like you can get the historical valuation for the past. You can get flash sales for the past. You can look at a lot of things in the past. There are some things that you do need to run, like at end of month though, or end of year, if you want those figures to be accurate, because you can't go backwards. So your month end, period end reports, I would say, would be your inventory valuation. So that's your point in time, what the inventory was worth on that date. And you can get that in historical valuation later on if you want, but sometimes historical valuation isn't 100% accurate. So I would do the inventory valuation. You need to run at the end of each period, because you can't go back and get this, open orders and layaways. So you can see what all your open orders are, what all your open layaways are at period end. Your open store credits and gift certificates. And getting your orders, layaways, store credits, and gift certificates, that allows you to go back to your GL and balance up there to see what your liabilities are in those accounts. Your open accounts receivable, if you're using AR. Your flash sales, in whatever method you want those broken down. But like I said, those you can always go back and run later on. Some places do drawer summaries for every register, every drawer, every store. That way you can look at summary of like pay code and sales and returns and all that by drawer. Your sales tax, you can always go back and you can get that after the fact. Your unvouchered receivings. So again, a lot of times that's used to go back and balance with your accounting system. If you're vouchering your receivings to your accounting system, having that unvouchered receivings at month end is really helpful to see what your open payables are. And then also if you're doing general ledger distributions, usually people are doing some kind of interface to their accounting system and very often keep some kind of an export or a report of what the GL distributions were for the month or for the period. Another thing I get asked about often are what kind of audit reports can you run? So if you're auditing your sales and your sales staff, your stores, that kind of thing. So audit reporting would be in sales history. Most of those are in sales history. You've got sales history reports, and you can look at your void transaction. So you've got voided tickets report. You can look at your return tickets report. And then you've got price exceptions and price reductions. And those are audit reports because those are all methods that we hate to think it, but those are all methods that our employees can steal from us, either cash or merchandise. Also, another one to look at for audit reporting is the inventory adjustment report, because again, inventory adjustments are often used as a way that people can take merchandise. But if you can look at your adjustments and look for anomalies there, you can a lot of times catch those things as they're happening. And then also, as far as those exceptions go, we've got the exception reports here in sales history. Also, there's a report in point of sale reports, and it is called the point of sale exceptions report. And this requires that a utility called data aggregation run in the background. It's not really recommended on systems with large amounts of data, but this allows you to sort of create a consolidated report that looks at all of those exceptions by user and by overriding user, which is usually a manager. But again, in larger databases, it's not recommended because data aggregation uses lots of system resources when it runs. And then I was going to talk about the email utility, which I already have. And then also, I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware that you can get Counterpoint help online. And there's a website you can go to, and it's www.ncrcounterpointhelp.com. And that's searchable Counterpoint, like searchable how to help documentation. A lot of times you can find report information there. And then we will send you the reports manual, Counterpoint reports manual. And also I'll send these notes from my presentation, so you'll have that information as well. Are there any other questions that we need to answer? We are about at our hour.
Thanks, Karen. A lot of great information there. I've had a couple people that were pretty excited about the RCS utility that allows you to schedule automatic emails. How do people find out more information about that?
We can take your information and we can get it to you, or you can contact your account manager.
Okay, that's what I figured.
And it's very easy to implement, and it's not terribly expensive, so it's very helpful.
Great. Is it a monthly fee or is it just a one-time setup?
No, it's a one-time.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and this was not meant to be a sales presentation, but I feel like that's so helpful that people would want to know about it.
Yeah, I know a lot of our customers really love that.
Yeah.
If anybody else has any questions, we've got a couple minutes left. Put it in the Q&A or the chat. Nick Wilson asked about the new RCS portal and if we have a section where we share information like we used to. We don't currently, but we are working on setting that up again. It is something we lost with the new portal, but we are looking into ways to share information again. All right, nothing else is coming through. Arlene is interested in learning more about the data exports.
Actually, I'm going to talk a little bit about data export in this afternoon's session.
Okay.
So you can attend that if you want to know other information as well. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it this afternoon, but I'd be happy to talk to you offline about it as well.
Great. And yeah, anybody that had specific questions, I have your information and we will reach out if you ask for specific answers. And as always, we're here to help. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Karen or your account representative. We're just here to try and make your life easier. I know a lot of people have some downtime right now, so now is a great time to figure out all those things you haven't had time to learn before. So
It is.
thanks everyone. Appreciate your time and reach out if you have any questions. Thanks, Karen.
Thanks, everybody. Be healthy. Be sane. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.